This meeting of the Transit and Bus Committee is called to order. Are there any public speakers?
There are quite a few public speakers this morning, Mr. Chairman.
I know the answer to that.
The first speaker will be Martin Baez. I'd like to remind everyone to please limit their remarks to 2 minutes. And we're just waiting to get Mr. Baez a microphone. Okay, Mr. Baez, will you give us a minute because we're trying to get you a microphone. So we're going to go to Julius Tahajin first.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Julius Tajadeen. I'm a Harlem resident. And the first thing I want to bring out about this SBS bus service is that from its route, the beginning, through Harlem, it makes all the local stops in the more white populated areas of the bus line. But yet it wants to zip through the more Black and Latino areas of the bus line. That in itself is clear discrimination. Another thing that the MTA and DOT don't consider in this plan that should factor into the practicality of the plan is that there are times of the day that traffic is going to be congested, and there's nothing you can do to stop that congestion, or a strategy has not been revealed as of yet. And there will be times of the day that traffic goes through smoothly. 125th Street is not a wide street. It's on a fault line. There's upcoming construction. There will always be work going on the street just to maintain the street. Cars will be double parked. Cars will get into the bus lane to make right turns. Other buses will pick up wheelchair passengers from the street. So really, how much time will really be saved? To spend a lot of money to enforce this not thought out plan, just to prove a point, we've got to do this SBS bus service, is a waste of taxpayers' monies. It's other things, as Martin Baez will bring out. There are many things that have not been considered, and just to save 5 minutes to the airport, get up early enough to get to the airport, or make the once it goes through the Harlem area, then go express. But this is not a well thought out plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Martin Baez.
Good morning to all distinguished. Good morning to all distinguished board members. Thank you for your time and for the opportunity to allow us to address our concerns with the DOT MTA's proposal to turn the M60 airport bus in Harlem into a select bus service. DOT MTA select bus service plan for the M60 airport bus is now wanted by the majority of the Harlem residents, including many of Harlem's elected officials, Democratic Club, and grassroots coalition. But the communities that the plan will largely offend are people with disabilities and senior citizens. The plan does not consider our needs and hardships. The plan calls for the elimination of several bus stops from the M60 route along 125th Street. Although such elimination purports making service to the airport faster, such expediency only considers able-bodied people. However, such plan hampers airport expediency for people with disabilities and the elderly, and likely will create more financial hardship for us too, especially a wheelchair user like myself. Many will be forced to take multiple buses, cabs, or car service just to get to a select bus service stop to go to the airport. While the impact of stop reduction is likely a marginal inconvenience for the able-bodied people wishing to utilize the service, such reduction will likely be a major inconvenience for people with disabilities wishing to have the same right to equally enjoy the opportunity to utilize the M60 airport bus to the airport. Furthermore, the SBS plan violates the ADA law. When reading the law, we readily see that a public transportation system has to accommodate wheelchair users on the actual bus or maybe train. However, short language implicitly states that the public system route itself must be accommodating. You can't have a bus system that purports to make travel time to the airport more convenient, but makes travel time more inconvenient for people with disabilities. That is clearly discrimination. The plan has not been thought out carefully and is not worth all the expense just to save 10 minutes max, especially when it discriminates against people with disabilities. This plan is flagrantly disrespectful, egregiously disrespectful, blatantly disrespectful, deliberately disrespectful, intentionally disrespectful, and disrespectful to democracy and equal opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Baez. The next speaker is Louis Bailey. Mr. Bailey, please go to the microphone.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Louis Bailey. I'm a community organizer at We Act for Environmental Justice. We Act on January 26, 2012 initially went to DOT for SBS along 125th Street. As a former Harlem resident, the issue of getting across 125th Street has always been there. All 4 buses enter the corridor at Amsterdam Avenue. And the issues begin when buses get backed up at St. Nicholas Avenue. All 4 lines now utilize articulated bus service. We Act still stands by and supports full SBS service on 125th, not the truncated version from Lenox Avenue. If you're waiting at the first initial subway station, which is on St. Nicholas Avenue, which serves 4 subway lines, if you're waiting there, the approximation of getting across 125th Street will be about 27 minutes, no matter which bus you get on. Okay? So again, We Act for Environmental Justice supports a full SBS service along the corridor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. The next speaker is Murray Bowden.
Third meeting this morning. The chairman at the first 2 meetings said to the staff, would you please keep your reports concise and slow and short, because time is of the essence. That means you don't read the whole thing that you're prepared for regular stuff. So in the interest of brevity, my remarks will be emailed to you all. Thank you for letting me here.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden. The next speaker is Morgan Montana. Ms. Montana will be followed by Orrin Getz.
Morning. My name is Morgan. I'm a former resident of Harlem, and I currently work at City College. So I'd like to speak out in support of the M60 bus project and thank the board for their diligence in moving this project forward. So first of all, I want to speak about extending the 125th Street stop all the way to Amsterdam Avenue, not just from Lenox to 2nd Avenue. Also, the reverse MetroCard vending machines, I think they're going to speed up the payment process and just get us moving quickly, which is definitely going to take an adjustment, but I think in the long run is going to be really beneficial to riders. And also, the efficiency that the M60 bus would have from getting to LaGuardia Airport, I think is going to be really beneficial to riders. I used to take that bus all the time when I was living in Harlem to LaGuardia Airport, and it's really convenient as opposed to going all the way down to Port Authority. And I think getting us there quicker is going to alleviate a lot of travel anxiety, and it's going to be much more pleasant for riders. just in reference to what somebody said earlier about disabilities, there are also 3 local lines that run on 125th Street. So, these can be accessed and then, take you right to an SBS stop. Also, the SBS buses, from what I understand, are actually more accessible to people with disabilities. They're lower to the ground and have different kinds of ramps, which is, going to benefit people with disabilities as well. So, thank you.
Montana. The next speaker is Orrin Getz, and Mr. Getz will be followed by Councilman Mark Levine.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the board. I'm here because I have one of these Easy Pay senior citizen cards. The problem is when turnstiles malfunction, you have a huge problem. And the big problem is right here in Grand Central Terminal entering the shuttle platforms. When you swipe this card, it says swipe again. You swipe again. And then it says just used. So you can't use your card. And this is because of a lack of maintenance on the turnstiles here at Grand Central on the shuttle platform. I think it's very important for us to get those turnstile card readers maintained properly so that senior citizens don't get cheated. Because I paid for the fare and then I have to pay a full fare buying a regular Metro card because this one just says just used. So this is a chronic problem with those turnstiles entering the shuttle at Grand Central, and they have to be fixed. Another chronic problem is the lack of facilities to handle the fares on the Long Island Railroad side of Penn Station entering the 7th Avenue subway. There aren't enough vending machines. There is a long line for people trying to buy the tickets through the station agent. It's chronic there, it's outrageous, and it has to be fixed. You need more machines. At critical times, you may need a second agent there. This is a small thing that is causing a lot of people a long line, and I think it can be easily remedied. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Getz. The final speaker is Council Member Mark Levine. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good morning, I should say. I'm still a rookie learning how to do this. I represent 96th Street on the west side up to 165th Street in Washington Heights, an area that covers the western portion of the route being considered for SBS. And I'm here to speak strongly in favor of this plan. 125th Street right now, the commercial spine of northern Manhattan, the average bus speed is slower than walking speed. Many times I've seen riders simply get off the buses in frustration and walk as the fastest way to get to their destination. SBS offers an affordable and quickly implementable solution to this problem, and one I believe we should go forward with. It will give residents of the neighborhood an additional option. In addition to 3 buses, which will be local, 1 more that would go more quickly. And it is overwhelmingly local residents who are using this line. Yes, it's a route to the airport, but for many people, it's just a way to get across 125th Street. Mr. Baez raises a valid point about the distance between stops and the hardship that imposes on people who are in wheelchairs, and I think we should consider adding additional stops on this route, particularly between the long stretch between Lenox and St. Nick, where there would be no quick access for people in wheelchairs. This plan is currently supported by not only myself, but State Senator Perkins, as well as State Senator Adriano Spayat. But the plan is about to be implemented has a strange quirk. It's going to have an express lane only east of 5th Avenue. For the rest of the length, all the way up to Amsterdam, there'll be no express lane. This is going to deprive the folks in West Harlem and Central Harlem of the central benefit of this plan. I think it's profoundly unfair to the residents of Central and West Harlem, who will suffer with slow speeds in their parts of the neighborhood. The solution is to have a bus-only lane from end to end on this route. I understand you're going forward with implementation quickly this spring, and that if we can get community board resolutions in these neighborhoods in favor of adding the express lane, that could be part of the original implementation. So I'm working with CB9 and CB10 to make this case. I hope that we can, from the get-go, make this a plan that works for end-to-end throughout northern Manhattan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay. That was the last speaker.
Moving to the minutes of the January Transit and Bus Committee meeting, is there a motion to approve? Second.
Second.
Any changes or comments? All in favor? Meeting, the meeting minutes are approved. Mr. Yes.
There is one correction that should be made in the minutes. On the top of 1.3, it quotes Member Greenberg as having said something, yet Member Greenberg is not listed as having attended on the attendance sheet, so can't have that. So I move that Ira's name be added to attendance.
Is there a second? All in favor? Mr. Greenberg's name is added to attendance. Any changes to the work plan, Mr. Bergen? Before we proceed with the meeting, let me ask everyone here for your indulgence and assistance in trying to keep this meeting from going on into the twilight of our day. I know you'll help. We have a very long, unusually long agenda. So with that, I'm glad to turn the meeting over to President Carmen Bianco.
Thank you. Before we begin our meeting today, I want to acknowledge the tragic loss of a member of our transit family. We are all terribly saddened by the loss of one of our bus operators, William Pena, who was an employee with 17 years of service and who celebrated his 49th birthday just 2 days before the incident. On Wednesday, February 12th at 5:30 in the morning, a man in a stolen truck hit his M14 bus in Manhattan and took the life of a husband, a father, and a valued member of the community and our transit family. And with that, I'd like to, before we go forward with our meeting, ask for a moment of silence. Thank you. Before I turn the meeting over to my colleagues, as our chairman just mentioned, we do want to abbreviate our reports today. All the information that we talk about will be found in your books. We really want to spend some time in this meeting talking about safety, not only safety around how we look at our customers and our employees, but also want to get it down to the level of culture. What are the depth of what we do around these issues are something that we're, one, proud of, and number two, something that's top of mind for us every day. So we really want to spend some time talking about that today. So you're going to see, as we go through the various operating reports and reports on the different areas, that I've asked everyone to abbreviate those so we can really get to the that presentation as quickly as possible. So with that, Joe Leader.
Good morning. Subway performance results for the 12-month period ending December 2013 are as follows. We are pleased to report that the system-wide weight assessment for the 12-month period improved slightly by 0.5% as compared to last year's average. This reflects an aggressive effort to maintain regularly spaced service and improve the customer experience as we face tremendous operational challenges. Regarding MDBF in December, MDBF was 141,700 miles, down 21.5% from December of 2012. The 12-month average was 153,382 miles, down 5.4% from 162,138 miles for the preceding 12 months. Moving on to key performance indicators. System-wide service KPI was 80.3, down 1.9% from 82.2% in December of 2012. System-wide passenger environment survey KPI was 92%, up 1.1% from 90.9% in December of 2012. The Staten Island Railway PES KPI was 93.2%, up 1.2% from 92% in December of 2012. In closing, I would like to make mention of our recent storm fighting efforts in a winter that hasn't given up. Last week we experienced our 14th snow event of the season. We have broken the record for the most snowfall in New York City for the first 2 months of the year with 48 inches of snowfall. Subways has relied heavily on our detailed and comprehensive winter operations plan and incident command center protocols to safely and effectively deliver service with minimum disruption to our customers. As reported last month, employees continue to work around the clock on storm fighting efforts in each of the recent events. We are proud of our storm fighting efforts and recent success, but we are mindful that the harsh weather has taken toll on our equipment and service. from door-related car equipment trouble to arcing insulator incidents that can lead to track fires, to elevator service disruptions, as well as the service implications of our Plan 4 storm strategies such as underground layups. Every time we go into a Plan 4, Plan 5, or a Plan 2 modified, and we go underground, we suspend the express service early, which will impact regular service and cause delays. However, we remain thankful to our customers' patience during these storms and are particularly grateful for our riders' enhanced vigilance and attention to safety during the hazardous conditions these storms have created. We are, of course, very hopeful for an early spring. And that's my report.
Good morning. I would like to start by echoing Carmen's sentiments regarding the significant loss that we experienced in the bus operations on February 12th. All of us feel a profound sadness and a personal sense of loss as we mourn the passing of one of our own. In order to allow ample time for the scheduled safety presentation later in the committee, I will provide a brief comment regarding our performance in the last month and a paratransit highlight. Of course, a full reporting of the December operating stats as well as the 12-month performance is provided in your committee book. Last month, both Carmen and I took a moment to comment on the performance of our people through the extreme weather that occurred in January. Unfortunately, those challenges carried into February. We experienced numerous significant snow events in February, as reflected in the fact that this has been the third snowiest February on record. The February 13th storm was the most significant. We continue to chain local buses standard and articulated for service as required. In the aftermath of these events, we are still working diligently to bring our equipment back to its pre-storm state as we continue to provide a high level of customer-friendly bus service. As we work hard to do that, you will notice that month-to-month operating statistics reflect some challenges. However, the 12-month trend continues to reflect the achievements we have shown over the last year. Next, I would like to report on a performance trend within paratransit that we are very proud of. Paratransit has received a preliminary flash report of the 2013 Annual Customer Satisfaction Study. Paratransit sought a needed improvement in the rating for a key ADA compliance factor for capacity, namely the ability for customers to get through to make a reservation. The board had approved a contract award to a new firm to operate and manage the call center that became effective April 1st, 2013. The preliminary results of the annual study indicate customers are now able to make their reservations on their first attempt to call, which is reflected in a rating of 93%. Well above the previous year low rating of 73%, and that completes the bus report.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to take the opportunity to congratulate the bus people for a job well done. Considering the moon-like craters that dot New York City and indeed seem to be overwhelming the streets, the fact that they have been able to get around at all is nothing short of a miracle, and I think it's about time the public understood that.
Thank you. Are you concluded, Darrell?
Yes, sir.
Back to Carmen.
Let me just add to what Darrell said. I think first of all, I appreciate your comment. There have just been so many on our team that have just worked tirelessly throughout all these storms to make sure that we're out there and we're providing service, and I'm very proud of everyone on the team. You'll notice though that our equipment doesn't meet the standards that we expect in terms of its cleanliness at this point on the exterior. As you can imagine, we can't use the washers with the kind of weather that we've had. We are washing today, and we have been washing since the weather has been above freezing, but it's going to take us a while to catch up in that regard. And on a final note, for all of our members of the board, I just want to make mention that bus time for Queens and for Brooklyn will go live on March the 9th. So we're excited about that. That'll then include the entire city. All the boroughs will be involved. We're very excited. And should anyone want additional information, I suggest you go over to mta.info and you can read about it there. Thank you.
Yes.
Carmen, is any special piece of rail equipment used in the open cut lines like the Brighton and the Sea Beach and the part of the Franklin Shuttle to remove snow drifts when they occur, since it's obviously a problem in a line like those?
Yeah, absolutely, and absolutely, it's a great question. And what happens is it's not just any one given storm; it's the accumulative effect where you wind up with, snow just below the top of the rail, and then that snow becomes ice, encrusted ice, and then all of a sudden you get 4 or 5 more inches. Now you're in a place where you could start to have mechanical problems on the trains. The other night, what we did was proactively made a decision in the middle of the night that we were going to shut the line down for, I think it was about an hour. We actually had the line down, and we ran what we call a snow thrower. It actually went out there. We ran it up and down the West End and also the Brighton line of it. Sea Beach, and we actually were able to remove a bunch of the snow, so as the new snow came in, we had a different starting point. So we are looking at proactive ways that we want to ensure that in the morning we're delivering service. So we may have to do things like that in the middle of the night just to make sure that we're there in the morning. Okay, I think we're ready to turn it over to Cheryl.
Okay. Safety results for subways were as follows. The subway customer accident rate increased by 5.4% over the previous 12-month period. Regarding specific accident types, slip, trip, and falls contributed significantly to the increase. There were 77 confirmed fires, all being lower average in severity, for the month of December. Over the last 12 months, fires increased by 13.4%. The employee lost time accident rate for the Department of Subways increased by 14.9% for the rolling 12-month period. Slip, trip, and falls and overexertion were the 2 major categories that led to the increase. Safety results for New York City Transit Bus and MTA Bus through December 2013 were as follows. Bus collisions per million miles traveled increased by 5.3% for the 12-month period through December 2013. However, monthly rates have been steadily decreasing since October. Bus collision injuries per million miles increased by 9.8% for the same 12-month period. The combined 12-month rate for bus customer accidents per million customers decreased by 6.6% through December 2013. Bus customer accident injuries per million customers decreased by 3% for the same 12-month period. The employee lost time accident rate for the rolling 12-month period was down 5.8% for NYCT Bus and 25.1% for MTA Bus. Thank you.
On the fires,
Yes.
were those to any significant degree caused by debris on the tracks?
Yes, a majority of the fires were debris on the right-of-way and some were in the station.
And are you aware of what steps have been taken to try and minimize that?
Well, Joe's group is working feverishly on getting the vacuum train back up in running order, as well as he's hiring, I believe, 23 new employees to do cleaning efforts.
Are any of these track areas the ones where there are food facilities on or near the station?
Well, of course, yes, absolutely. But let me just go back and
I was just advocating.
No. Let me answer your question. Our program in the station environment area, we actually are out there every 3 weeks, right, Joe? Every station is, and busier stations we try to ramp it up even more, but at least go through every station every 2 to 3 weeks, picking up all the trash on the tracks. To get between the stations, that's where you want the use of the vacuum train. The 2 that we have right now are beyond the end of life. We're going to be coming with a procurement soon to purchase a new vacuum trains that will even do will have better performance along the right of way. That's the answer to this. You just got to stay on it. You got to keep it clean, and it's a never-ending job. It's just a never-ending role.
May I respectfully make a suggestion? Instead of proposing one, do a couple, please, because this situation can trigger a real problem.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Merdler.
Yes, sir. Good morning. I'm pleased to report that for the first month of 2014, total major felony crime was down 12.5% within the transit system compared to the same period in 2013. It's 217 versus 248. That's after a year-end 4.6% reduction in 2013. The January reduction includes a 19.7% year-to-date decline in robberies and 18 fewer grand larcenies for a 10% decrease. Felony assaults for the period were also down 21.4%, with 3 fewer incidents, 11 versus 14. For the month of January, we averaged 7 major felonies per day. The number of major felonies is down from 8 per day that occurred during the same period last year. The decline in robberies brought the daily average from 2 robberies per day down to 1.6. Of the 217 major felonies for 2014, 44% were committed in Manhattan, 11% in Queens, 26% in Brooklyn, and 15% in the Bronx. I thank Mr. Tom Prendergast, Carmen Bianco, Joe Lita, and the members of this board, and I welcome any questions or suggestions.
Are there any questions for Chief Fox? It's all good news and going in the right direction. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Back to Carmen Bianco, who will pick up on the finance report.
For preliminary 2013 New York City Transit fare box revenue was $4 billion, 12.6 million, or 0.3% above the estimate. Preliminary 2013 operating expenses before depreciation and OPEB were below the estimate by 87.2 million, or 1.3%. Preliminary ridership 2013 New York City Transit ridership totaled 2.4 billion, virtually the same as the estimate. 2013 average weekday ridership results compared to 2012 were as follows. Subway ridership was 5.5 million, an increase of 1.6%, and the highest average weekday ridership since 1950. New York City Transit local bus ridership was 2.1 million, a decrease of 0.1%. New York City Transit Express bus ridership was 43,000, a decrease of 0.3%. And paratransit ridership was 29,000, a decrease of 2.9%. An early look at preliminary January 2014 financial results. Farebox revenue was 12.8 million, 3.8% below the adopted budget, due mainly to nearly 20 inches of snow in January. Preliminary January 2014 operating expenses exceeded the adopted budget by 33.3 million, or 6.3%, as the impact of snowstorms increased overtime requirements and decreased reimbursable work. These preliminary January results will be addressed at the Finance Committee meeting. Daryl?
Year-to-date, December 2013 farebox revenues for MTA Bus were $198 million, which is $800,000, or 0.4% better than the final estimate. The average non-student fare was $1.78 in December, up 7.9% from December 2012. Year-to-date, December 2013 actual MTA Bus total non-reimbursable accrued expenses before non-cash liabilities were $0.1 million below the final estimate. This performance represents the combination of favorable non-labor expense underruns of 6.3 million and a labor expense overrun of 6.2 million. Ridership for MTA Bus. Preliminary year-to-date December 2013 MTA Bus ridership totaled 125 million, which is 0.5% or 0.6 million higher than the final estimate. Relative to December 2012, the average weekday local bus ridership increased by 1.2%, average weekday express ridership decreased by 4.3%, and average weekday local ridership was relatively unchanged. This concludes the MTA Bus Finance and Ridership reports.
Fred Smith will present the capital.
Okay, good morning. Capital program results for the month of December included a total of 402 million. Just so you know, that completes the calendar year and our goals. We achieved 2.4 billion in new capital contract awards, and it's a record high for us for the number of contracts that we actually put out, including 26 in the month of December, to give us 173 projects for the calendar year. The two major awards for December were a bus purchase for 40-foot standard diesel buses, 414, and also a stations contract for 5 stations on the Liberty Avenue line in Queens. Major completion for the month of December was the purchase and delivery of 23 new rail cars as part of the R188 car contract. That's for the Flushing line. And what this does for us is gives us the 3 trains that we need to begin testing and installing CBTC equipment on so we can proceed with our CBTC project. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions thus far on the operating report? Mr. Merdler.
Mr. Smith, quick question if I may. Do you have any statistics that indicate the percentage of compliance with the deadlines in contracts that are awarded? In other words, have 50% of the contracts been complied with in terms of the time constraints? Have 90%? Do you have any statistic like that?
I don't have the statistics off the top of my head for this year, but we do track that. We do monitor our performance. In the early 90s, we had a significant issue with contracts running late. We've improved that significantly, and I've shared that information with peers within the state of New York, within the public sector as well, where we talk about issues like AWOS and contract duration.
If you could let us have any data at your convenience, that would be appreciated.
Okay.
Okay. If there is nothing else, we're ready to go to procurements and Steve Plachaki.
Good morning. The procurement package, which presents New York City Transit and MTA CC procurements, includes 4 actions totaling $11 million in expenditures. I ask for your approval of all actions in the agenda.
Is there a motion?
I move the procurements.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions and comments on these procurements? If there are none, are we ready for a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Then we'll turn this over to Dr. Haradnachenu, who will present the MTA CC action item and give the MTA CC project report.
Good morning. Capital Construction has one action item this month for your consideration. The item is related to the 2nd Avenue Subway project and can be found beginning on page 6.1. MTACC is requesting approval to enter into an access and work agreement with the owners of 301 East 69th Street in order to gain access, coordinate utility work, and to construct alterations to that building in support of the construction of the entrance 1 of the 72nd Street station. This item is submitted for your consideration and vote.
An item.
I move the item.
A second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
This moves to the full board. Dr. Haradnachenu will present the project's report.
Thank you. I'll start with the Fulton Center with less than 5 months of construction remaining. The project is on schedule for opening in June of this year. Testing and commissioning of major systems such as emergency generators, fire alarm, elevator and escalators have started and are anticipated to be completed by the end of April. The architectural finishes are now at the point of doing some of the floors. We are 90% complete and will be completed by the end of March. Testing and commissioning of smoke management system, police radio system, public address system will start the first week of March and expected to be completed also by the end of April. Basically, out of 19 elevators, right now 7 are in 12 in effect have been tested, 7 are in service, 5 have been completed and tested and are waiting to be placed in service, and 7 more at various stages of testing. Out of the total of 10 escalators, basically half have been already tested and half still are going to the final testing. Let me move to number 7 line extension. Right now, 95% of the project is complete. We're still struggling with our escalators and elevators issues that have yet to be, we did not yet pass the FAT. We are working with the contractor to date to try to mitigate that. I have just a few slides to show some of the progress that we have accomplished.
Basically, this is the traffic power connections for third rail that are proceeding. The tunnels are basically prepared to accept the new activation of the rail. We still have some work to be done where we needed to replace some of the tracks that were improperly installed. This is the ventilation fans that we have at Site L, and they are there now, and we are also working. I have said that we're still challenged by the escalators. However, we started the installation now, and once we're done, and we started it on both inclines, and we expect to start actually factory acceptance testing in situ. This is some of the pictures of what we are today. We are working on the station, and the station architectural finishes will be completed by June, and this is a work in progress. Outside, anyone going by will see the entry canopy. This is a new canopy at the Site J at 34th and 11th Avenue, and the installation is proceeding right now, and we expect again to be completed relatively soon. I would like to actually point out that we have not yet been able to be out of the woods with the elevators. These are the inclined elevators, and we are working with the contractors to try to address the various issues. And again, we are, as I've already said before, we are not going to be opening the station in June. It will be probably in the fall. And this is something that we're working right now with the contractors, as well as we are our clients, that is New York City Transit. Let me move to 2nd Avenue. 2nd Avenue is actually, again, on schedule, as well as within budget, actually below budget. It's moving along well. At 96th Street, what we have is, in effect, completed the heavy civil. We are now about 30% done on the finishes, and some of the things. The mezzanine has been completed, and we started to put the roof on the station. That means that once we're done, we can move the utilities back and start the completion of the upper part, although we are continuing to work below ground. At 86th Street, do you have any of the, yeah? Can you put on some?
We don't have that much time.
Oh, well, I'm moving along fast. I got it. This is, come on. The 96th Street, this is really where we are in September. We have progressed since that time, and we have completed by now the mezzanine, so everything is done there. The tunnels, the tunnel work has been completed, now awaiting the installation of the rail. 86th Street, again, it's moving well. The walls at this point are, I guess, 90% complete. I was there Saturday, and we're done. The arch forms, they have been in place, and we are pouring the arches and that. We are completing the ceilings. Keep going. Again, the tunnels below 82nd Street are being concreted, but yet to put in the benches. That's the next stage. 72nd Street, we completed the civil work that was, they're out of the cavern, and now we're moving with the finishes. The finishes contractor is taking, took over the site, and we started to, in effect, place the mezzanine. So we have placed a number of mezzanine slabs already. I think about 3 of them. Good news about the people on the street. We had 2 mock houses that have been removed, and as well as a hog house. So that's the hog house that was 2-story building, has been now dismantled in its totality, opening the sidewalk, as well as the hog houses on both have been completed and removed. That's it.
Any questions? Thank you. Yes, Mr. Albert.
Michael, on
Yes.
the escalators in the Fulton Center, are those all under Transit's maintenance and
No.
upkeep? Those are third party?
No, they are, some of them are under Transit, but the majority of them are third party.
Anything further?
Michael, at least when you took down the muck house, the facades of the old buildings were now on display again to the public, and at least 2 residents asked if you could put back the muck houses. I want you to know that.
I guess not the ones that live in the buildings, right? The ones that look at them.
Okay. If we're ready for service changes, Peter Caffiero.
Thank you. We have one service change item that we're informing the committee of this month. It's of our plan to implement select bus service on the M60, which is currently the local bus service that operates between Manhattan across 125th Street and into Queens into LaGuardia Airport. The new service will operate that full length between Morningside Heights and LaGuardia. However, I should point out that while it's often called the LaGuardia bus, about 90% of the riders that use the M60 every day are not headed to LaGuardia, but in fact are going crosstown or across the East River to Queens. This route has been developed in concert with and close coordination with our partners at New York City Department of Transportation, and has had probably more extensive public outreach than any prior. We've had over 50 meetings with the public on this plan over the last several years. The net operational cost of the service initiative is $2.7 million, which is included in our operating budget. This concludes the service change section of the agenda.
Mr. Birdler.
Is any comparable service contemplated for the area between the South Bronx and Queens, where people work?
We several years ago had a major outreach throughout the city about select bus service and what other route corridors are potential ones, and that was one that was identified. It's certainly something that we will be looking at in the upcoming years. We are needing to discuss with the new administration moving forward with this project in general around the city and prioritizing.
I wonder if you could keep me posted on where you are on that one? Thank you.
Mr. Capelli. Thank you. Mr. Albert.
Peter, on 125th Street, where once you've put in the off-board fare collection fare sales machines, will the other buses, the M100 or the BX15, will they accept those receipts, or will it be clear that you can transfer between the various routes on 125th Street with the paid receipt if you've gone to the trouble to get one? Or, I mean, you've done that on other select where there's local buses. Will this be the same?
Well, first of all, the normal standard transfer process is that your MetroCard will be encoded with a transfer when you dip it in the machine, so it will work as a transfer on any other bus as well as any subway station. And if you were coming from another bus or a subway, it would accept the transfer in the machine and issue the receipt. And the primary purpose of the receipt is to be proof of payment to show the Eagle team as they do inspections. When we've implemented in other locations to certainly to ease the implementation, we have accepted those receipts based on judgment and in other routes in the corridor. This is a little more complicated because, as you point out, there's multiple routes going to multiple areas. But it's certainly something that we're looking at as we move towards rolling out. I should have actually added, I don't think I gave a timing. The date of this is still something we need to work with the city based on when it stops snowing and some other things that affect when they can start the work, but we're looking sometime in the spring. that this will be implemented.
So, if you move forward with accepting the prepaid receipts that you get out of the sidewalk machines on the other buses on 125th Street, obviously the operators of those routes would have to be notified that this is the case, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
If there's nothing further, back to Carmen Bianco for the special presentations.
Okay. Section 8 of this month's agenda begins with our regular status report on MetroCard program. The following three reports for New York City Transit, Staten Island Railway, and MTA Bus are presented in accordance with the MTA's annual budget procedures. These reports present the 2014 adopted budget and the February financial plan for the 2014 through 2017 period. These reports also reflect the inclusion of the MTA's adjustments that were presented in the November financial plan, which was adopted by the board in December of 2013. New York City Transit's February financial plan also includes some technical adjustments, mostly related to the recent SSSA TSO labor contract arbitration ruling. In terms of follow-up reports, continuing on, it's customary for February. We have a number of standard follow-up reports, including this month for your information. There's the annual report on ADA compliance initiatives for committee information. The semi-annual report on service quality indicators is also presented for New York City Transit and MTA Bus this month. This includes the passenger environment survey indicators, or PES, for subway cars, subway stations, Staten Island Railway, and buses, along with the semi-annual bus weight assessment results. Following that, we have the elevator and escalator performance report covering the fourth quarter of 2013. We are pleased to announce that for the 9th straight quarter, our elevators and escalator availability has exceeded our availability goals of 96.5% and 95.2% respectively. The final item in this section is the Transit Adjudication Bureau report, also covering the fourth quarter of 2013. There's one other thing I want to bring to your attention before we move on to the safety presentation. As some of you may know, this is the last committee meeting for our General Counsel, Marty Schnabel. Marty, I'm not sure, you may want to stand up so we all could see you. Marty's retiring after 37 years at the Transit Authority. His career started as a law clerk at the authority, and he steadily rose through the ranks, assuming the position of general counsel in 1996. Throughout his career, Marty has served with intelligence, integrity, and a broad and deep knowledge of the law in our business. He's provided incredible counsel to all of us on so many different areas, and he's just been amazing to work with. And Marty, we wish you all the best as you move on to the next chapter of life, and it's just been amazing to work with you. Thank you.
Here. For the safety presentation, Carmen Bianco and Cheryl Kennedy and their staff.
Okay, let me begin. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. This is where we really wanted to spend the time. There's been a lot of questions in recent months around safety statistics and things that happen on the subway, and I really thought that what we do in transit is much deeper than that. So we really want to go through a number of the things that we talk about every day. It looks blurry from here, but hopefully you can see that if you're out there in the audience. The way we manage safety at New York City Transit is not to handle it as a discrete one-off. It's embedded in everything that we do, whether we're talking about financials, whether we're talking about, it doesn't really matter the issue. This really comes down to an issue that people matter, and it's really around making sure that we keep our customers and our employees the focal point as we think about safety. My background, just for those that may not know, I spent well over 20 years of my career in the area of safety. That's been my background. It's an area that I care for. I look at everything through that lens. And I'm also, I think it's important to point out, there's a few of us in this family that have also come up the same way. Our chairman, Tom Prendergast, has spent years in safety. I've not only led safety here at New York City Transit, but in a number of other organizations, And Joe Leader, our senior VP, has also spent a few years in safety. But what this is really all about today is it's not just about the check the box kind of things that have been traditional. This is about a new frontier. It's about really ensuring that the culture of our organization stays strong, stays intact, and that we follow that and we look at that as a way to move our organization along. As you can see, we want, if you define the word culture, it really is the way we do things around here. It's the way we run our business, and what we believe is that the culture that we want is one around people's matters. It's one around everyone having a personal responsibility for safety, that we over communicate, that we really listen to what's bubbling up from the ground levels in our organization so that we truly understand what's going on out there. As a senior leader in transit, I can't really fix anything if I don't have the data. So we really want to hear all the news, whether it's good news, bad news, doesn't matter, it's important. And what's important is to realize it's not just about safety rules and policies and procedures. What you really have to do to get to the new level in safety, to a new performance level, is really start to think of it from a behavioral perspective. What are the behaviors that we need in place, and how do you get there in order to have the organization focused from where I'd like to go, which is a paradigm shift from what's on the left there, an organization of compliance. And that is, do you follow the rules? And if people don't follow the rules, then we resort to discipline and, tend to see all kinds of behaviors come out of that, where people will follow the rules when they see somebody around that they need to follow the rules for. And that's not where we want to go. We don't want to check the box system. What we really want is to shift the paradigm over to the right there and have a family, if you will, that's based on commitment. That is where values drive our decisions, where we practice safety even when no one's around, where we stop worrying solely about policies and procedures, but get it to a whole nother level, and that next level is really around behaviors and exposure. If we have exposure out there, let's address it. And so in essence, in the bottom there, that last statement, safety really truly has to define our organization. It defines who we are and defines what we do. So one of the things, when I started here in 2010, when I came back, I was only back 4 weeks and we lost an employee. Actually had a track supervisor killed on the job, and for someone with my background, that certainly doesn't work for me. And we knew right then and there, I knew that we were going to go on this cultural journey, and we were going to make changes, because I really believe that you could work in this environment every day and thrive in this environment. There's really no reason for anyone to get hurt in our environment. But people would always ask me, what is it you want? Do you want safety or do you want productivity? As if there's some trade-off there. And my answer to everyone, and it's the same answer today, is that I want both. We have a very, very important mission here at New York City Transit to move millions and millions of people every day, but we never want to do that where we would cause a safety issue. So it's a trade-off of how do we get our mission accomplished every day, but at the same time do it at the highest levels of safety. And so safety would trump that productivity issue every single day. But we need to have an organization where people are free to bubble these things up in the organization, so that we can actually have a chance to work on issues. I just want to fly through some statistics for you, because we tend to need to look at, over the long haul, what has it been like here in transit. This actually looks at our customer injury rates per million customers, Cheryl, I believe it is. And what it shows is since 1995, we've had a 28% reduction in customer injuries. And keep in mind, too, over those years, the number of customers we carry has gone up significantly. The lost time injury rate, down 48%. These are employee lost time injuries. This is the subway mainline collisions. You can see that we're down 100% from where we were in the mid-90s or 1993. Bus collision rates down 46% over that time period, since '88. Subway mainline derailments, 95% improvement since the data point that we picked there in 1984, I guess. And you've heard our chairman talk many times about the old red tag days. You can see that on the left side of that chart, and you can see where we are today. Subway fires, significant increase, 64% over time. Decrease, I'm sorry. What did I say, increase? I'm sorry, decrease. And let me now shift from just some background statistics to talk about this from a different perspective. I'm going to ask a number of people around the table here to actually talk about their part. I want to do this from a couple different perspectives. One, we have a safety group here at New York City Transit that's second to none. As I traveled around the country and around the world, working with a lot of companies, the capabilities that we have here are second to none. So I want Cheryl Kennedy to actually walk through our capabilities in the Office of System Safety. We're then going to hear from Dawn Pinot on the HR issues, because it's not just a matter of moving a lot of trains and a lot of buses, but you need a workforce that's fit, that's ready to go to duty, that is monitored, and so we're going to go through what does that mean? What are some of the HR policies that impact safety and health? We'll turn to the operating groups, where we'll talk about some of the things that are going on both in buses and subways, and Fred Smith will then give us a report on how do we handle third-party contractors, those that are doing work along our system. But tying this all together is this whole notion of culture, and that's where we're spending a lot of our time in the last couple of years, is how do you bring this all together? How do you get an organization that has a lot of respect and a lot of value for the people that work here, a lot of value for our customers? And so everything we do comes down in this regard. So Cheryl, why don't you take it from there and talk about the Office of System Safety?
Okay. The next slide. Okay. This slide shows the organizational chart for the Office of System Safety, and as you can see, System Safety is an independent department that reports directly to the President, which issues policies that define transit-wide safety requirements and provides oversight and technical support to all departments. The office is organized functionally into the 6 divisions shown on the slide. Next slide, okay. System Safety, as Carmen said, is staffed with highly educated professionals in various safety fields, as well as personnel with extensive operating experience. Some of our staff members are certified safety professionals and professional engineers. The Office of System Safety is also the liaison with many city, state, and federal agencies that affect transportation safety, such as the Federal Transit Administration, the New York State Public Transportation Safety Board, and the Occupational Safety and Environmental Oversight Agencies. Next slide. The Office of System Safety develops and oversees many programs that foster the integration of safety into all aspects of the organization to ensure the safety of our customers and our employees. And safety is managed using the system safety concept, which is the application of a systematic approach to identify, assess, and resolve hazards throughout the life cycle of a system, operation, activity, or equipment. Some of our programs are listed here on the slide. One I'd like to mention is that we conduct comprehensive independent investigations on major accidents and near-miss incidents. We make recommendations to prevent reoccurrence and work with the operating departments to ensure that they are implemented. Another notable one is that we have an extensive auditing program to ensure oversight, that we have an oversight. Now I'd like to discuss 3 others in detail on the following few slides. This slide, we're going to talk about the system safety program plans. We have them in place for both bus and rail, which ensure that safety is incorporated into all aspects of our organization, including design, procurement, operations, maintenance, and disposal, or until the end of a particular activity. The plan also outlines all departmental safety responsibilities. These plans are required by the Federal Transit Administration and are enforced by the State Safety Oversight Agency, In our case, it's the New York State Public Transportation Safety Board. And I'd like to also mention that all aspects that are discussed by future speakers today are encompassed in the system safety program plans. This next slide. Another initiative involves the conduct of hazard analysis using a technique outlined in Military Standard 882C, which is used by the Department of Defense and the aerospace industry and really is the foundation of system safety. This technique involves a systematic evaluation of operations and equipment to identify all possible hazards. Each hazard is evaluated based on the severity and probability of occurrence, and all unacceptable hazards are addressed through engineering and administrative controls. These hazard analyses are conducted on new or modified systems or operations before they're implemented. For example, we performed an operational hazard assessment or hazard analysis before implementing one-person train operation on the Rockaway Shuttle, which had low passenger volume and used half-length trains. This hazard analysis involved the identification, assessment, and resolution of a number of hazards associated with the removal of the conductor. For example, one hazard involved the potential for a customer getting caught in the doors, and in this case the conductor would not be available to observe the event and the train could move. To address this hazard, surveys were conducted at each station to ensure the train operator could see the entire length of the train and he could perform the duties of the conductor. CCTVs were installed where necessary. Many other actions were taken to address other hazards. Detailed analyses of this nature take up to a year to complete. This includes implementing resolutions and verifying their implementation. This is all done before operations can begin. Next slide. This slide gives you an overview of our roadway worker protection program. This program ensures that our employees are safe while working on the right-of-way through rules, training, program overview, and oversight. The program includes comprehensive track safety and flagging rules. It also includes track safety training for anyone who enters the right-of-way and flagging trainings for flaggers. And unlike other transit properties, we also have 2 track safety task forces in place to provide a continuous review of our program. The executive level track safety task force meets quarterly and consists of representatives from the New York State Department of Transportation, New York State Department of Labor, and the New York City Transit President and the TWU President. A local track safety task force is also in place, which consists of representatives from management, labor, and system safety. This task force addresses flagging rules and other right-of-way safety issues. They also review near-miss incident reports and inspection findings. An oversight of our program involves the investigation of right-of-way near-miss incidents such as improper flagging or portable trip overruns, and routine audits of right-of-way work is conducted by a joint TWU system safety team. This team averages over 350 inspections per year along the right-of-way. And now I'd like to turn the presentation over to Dawn Pinnock, who's going to talk about the safety-related role of occupational health services.
Thank you, Cheryl. Good morning. As Carmen mentioned, Human Resources also works collaboratively with our client departments to ensure the safety of our riders and our employees. And this work is done through our Occupational Health Services subdivision. Occupational Health Services, which is most commonly referred to as OHS, is a subdivision within Human Resources. And its objective is to ensure that employees are medically capable of performing their duties without compromising the safety of the riding public, themselves, or their co-workers. And on slide 20, we wanted to highlight at a very high level the cradle-to-grave approach that OHS takes when assessing the medical fitness of our employees. The OHS role actually begins before an offer of employment is extended to someone. The team conducts comprehensive pre-employment exams for candidates applying to serve in titles covered by medical standards to assess their fitness to function in the essential duties of their position. And in 2013, we conducted over 4,500 pre-employment exams. Also, to ensure the medical fitness of New York City Transit's and MTA bus employees, the OHS team conducts an average of 70,000 medical assessments annually, which include approximately 46,000 drug and alcohol tests. And throughout an employee's tenure, the OHS team also monitors the health of our employees through periodic exams and follow-up examinations for individuals with chronic medical conditions. Employees serving in public safety titles such as train operators and bus operators and tower operators, they're all required to undergo periodic medical evaluations every 2 years. And last year we conducted approximately 7,000 of these periodic exams. The OHS team also conducted an additional 14,000, well rather over 14,000 as you see, medical visits for employees with chronic medical conditions such as diabetes and hypertension. Employees with chronic conditions are scheduled for follow-up appointments for at least every 6 months to ensure that they're following their doctor's prescribed treatment plans and maintaining control of their medical conditions to remain fit for duty. Next slide, please. And so all of the decisions that we make with respect to the medical fitness of our employees at Transit and MTA Bus are based on our medical standards. The standards that we have in place have been developed between New York City Transit and an external medical consulting group. These standards are used as a reference tool to assist OHS physicians in making qualification decisions for candidates and employees. Currently, we have 30 titles that are covered under our standards. And for each title, we have a host of physical demands that we test against and environmental conditions that we take into account when determining one's medical fitness. And as you can see on the third bullet on this slide, we actually provided an example of one of the physical demands that we test for. So specifically for bus operator, we test someone's hands and arm steadiness to steer a wheel. We also test their vision to ensure that they could see any potential hazards or roadblocks on the road. So if you move to slide 22, as previously mentioned, we routinely conduct drug and alcohol tests to provide for the safety of our ridership and our employees. And slide 22 illustrates the percentage of transit and MTA bus employees who tested positive for drugs and alcohol from 1995 through 2013. As shown in 2013, 102 employees tested positive for drugs and 30 tested positive for alcohol, which represents a 60% improvement over an 18-year span. We are extremely proud of these numbers, and we attribute these low figures to our ongoing communication with employees, especially those serving in safety-sensitive titles. At the time that they are selected for employment, when they enter into new employee orientation, when they go to induction training, all members of staff are very clear that they are subject to random testing and the reasons why. We also established a mobile testing program where collections are made on site, where our OHS staff is visible to field personnel. And lastly, I think the low numbers, if I do say so myself, are due to the vigilance of the OHS team. They are very quick to act and work with our client departments to make sure that if we have any individuals who test positive, that we move swiftly to remove them from service. At this time, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Joe Leader.
All right, thank you, Dawn. Safety in subways starts at the top. It is important as a leadership team as well as a department that we have one voice, one message that we send out to our employees. And we do that a couple of ways in safety, in subways. We hold a top 50s leadership meeting on a quarterly basis where we discuss safety and operational priorities. The last top 50 meeting was held in January of 2014, and the topic was safety is about inches and it's about seconds. And what we were trying to get out, the message to our managers, to our employees, is that when you're on a job site, you have to constantly think about your surroundings and know about those inches and seconds, because that could be, the key from preventing an accident. Second, we hold roundtable meetings with our first line managers at our superintendent and general superintendent levels to make sure that that safety message is getting out there. And thirdly, when it comes to roadway protection, subway leadership meets at the local level as well as the mid management level monthly with labor. And goes over any kind of safety issues that are popping up, or any kind of issues or concerns that they have. Next slide. When running a rapid transit system, it is important that we ensure safe train operation, and we do that by making sure our personnel and our equipment is ready. When it comes to personnel, every day fitness for duties checks are performed on our crews that are reporting for their shift. Also, we perform regular inspections, and these are unannounced inspections. Train service supervisor will just walk onto the train, enter the cab, just to ensure that the train operator or the conductor are performing their duties properly. And the other thing to note is that there's extensive training when it comes to becoming a train operator. There's approximately 85 days put into training the train operator before they go into regular service. And we also perform other safety audits, both internally on my level from the Department of Subways, as well as Cheryl's group. When it comes to equipment and asset readiness, all our train cars are pre-tripped every day, and our train cars also go through a thorough inspection every 68 to 78 days. When it comes to our tracks are walked twice weekly, and that is also backed up by automated inspections by our TGC car, as well as other inspections that are performed by supervisors and managers throughout the month. And when it comes to our signal system, our inspections meet or either exceed FRA standards. Next slide. In a transportation system, speed control is very critical. We can't either go too fast or too slow. One thing that was established in 1988 was the Speed Policy Committee, and this committee still meets to this day. And basically, their job is to make sure that we are consistent and up to date with our Speed Policy Committee. When it comes to signals, we have time-controlled signals throughout our system. On the Canarsie line and in the future on the Flushing line, we'll have CBTC, which will control the movement of trains. But when you look at our older signal system, we have other devices such as wheel detectors and grade time signals that help control the speed of the train throughout our system. We also perform radar checks similar to the Highway Patrol. Last year in 2013, we performed over 6,000 radar checks along the right-of-way, making sure that our train operators stayed at the proper control. And again, I have to reiterate that there's very extensive training as well as evaluations that go on throughout the year. And the training is just not a one-time training. Train operators and conductors are required to go through refresher training every 3 years. Next slide. Besides our train crews, it's important that we ensure the safety of our industrial workers. Every day, daily safety toolbox talks are conducted by supervisors, and at these talks, not only do we go over some rules or procedures, but the actual work that's going to take place that day is reviewed, and questions can be asked at that time. For extensive jobs, we perform a joint pre-job inspection with management and the union. And what we've tried to instill into our managers is, as we plan a job, safety has got to be one of the first things that's looked at. Just not the production, but we're looking at the safety. We also perform something called no meetings days. And those are the days I pick, 1 or 2 a month, and I declare no meetings during that day, and I request that my managers go out in the field and engage with the work crews, and just to see how, first off, are they following rules and procedures, but also to see if there's anything else we can do out there to improve the safety. And besides this, we have occupational safety programs that are overseen by system safety, such as the respiratory protection, lockout, tagout, and hazardous chemical exposure programs that we're required to fulfill, and some of these are annual requirements. Next. Besides all this, besides procedures and policies, as Carmen's been trying to tell you, the biggest thing is we want to push the envelope in subways, and we've done that. In Fast Track has been a perfect example of how we've just rethought about the way we've done work. Last year in 2013, the lost time accident rate was 0.97. That's 0.97 employees per 100 employees. The average in subways for other work is about 2.3. So we've made a huge improvement in the safety when it comes to Fast Track. When it comes to third row protection, after we had our accident in 2013, we completely rethink about that. We have no exposed contact rail at this time. System-wide shutdowns, I know Carmen talked about this, but just last week during that nor'easter, we preemptively shut down 2 lines to make sure that we could safeguard and ensure that there was going to be good service. As we started to see some BIEs that might be popping up, we took the preventive action and shut down those lines. And lastly, one area that we just started called situational awareness. I'm very proud of this program we just rolled out at the end of last year and the beginning of January, because it was in-house bred. A lot of times safety programs, we go to the outside. We look at firms like DuPont and other firms. We ask them, what are you doing? How can you help us? This was actually inbred from our own managers. And what we're trying to do is, again, reinforce with the hourly and the supervisory level, is that you have to be constantly aware of your situation at all times. Okay, and by doing that, I know the eye somewhat scared some people, but we're asking them that always review the risk and identify the risk and reduce the risk on a job site. And that was the object of the campaign. And finally, one of the things that we're looking to do is to upgrade the tools and the from the technology that's out there, and give our managers and our employees what they need to keep track of what's going on. And if you notice on the bottom left-hand side, there's a huge section that's just dedicated towards safety. So what we want our managers to do is know at all times, real-time information, where we are when it comes to safety. And now I'll turn it over to Darryl.
Thank you, Joe. As referenced in an earlier slide, it should be noted that our current safety program is the result of a 25-year evolution from which we reduced our accident collision rate by 46%. These 2 symbolic wheels show the comprehensive and holistic management approach that focuses on key elements of our service package. And that service package is made up of a fit operator and a safe bus. A fit operator is the result of a comprehensive program starting from the hiring process through training, management, and performance monitoring. On the bus side, we start with engineered bus specifications that ensure that safety is embedded in the design of the bus. Throughout the life cycle of the vehicle, its overall safety and health status is monitored through our mileage-based inspection program, daily pre-trip inspections, and service line operations, which incorporates operator daily feedback. Next slide, please. Just to provide some context, it should be noted that much of our activity is mandated and regulated by Article 19A of the New York State Vehicle Traffic Law. As we focus on our bus operators, we have developed a multi-tiered approach, of which the annual 19A training and probationary review program are the foundational blocks. To supplement these foundational blocks, we have a comprehensive observation ride, performance and evaluation, performance monitoring, and accident review program, all designed to be intervention points throughout the life of a bus operator's career. And all of these interventions are based on various criteria and triggers. Next slide, please. Besides the various formalized safety programs, we continually refresh our safety message through a myriad of informal actions to reinforce a strong safety culture in our day-to-day business. At the operating locations, we utilize visual communication such as posters, media boards, handouts to communicate accident hotspots, trends, and reinforce safe driving practices. Our road operations divisions carry out an exercise called Basics that visits each division every week where they do a blitzkrieg on safety and maintain a sustained presence for our bus operators to see and identify weaknesses and create feedback. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, would you go back one, Carmen? And lastly on that slide, we utilize undercover observation rides to observe bus operators in their everyday work environment, so we may be able to see what they're doing in real time, in a real-time environment. Next slide. Switching to that second wheel, the safe bus, our inspection program includes a daily bus operator pre-trip inspection, operator vehicle condition reports, which provides the operators the ability to provide mechanical feedback, and our own MTA maintenance inspection programs in which we do safety inspections of every bus between 3,000 and 6,000 miles, depending on the particular duty cycle that the bus is in. Next slide. As we have been discussing safety is culture. The bus side of the operation puts out some 55,000 trips a day and is highly human dependent. And it's very important that we create a culture that controls the micro decision making processes of our bus operator, and it all goes back to culture. So to that end, we take extensive steps and efforts to ensure a safe work environment, and our internal industrial safety program implemented in conjunction with system safety is designed to do just that. This program includes comprehensive job-specific training, enforcing the use of proper personal protective equipment, daily and monthly walkarounds and safety talks, and written communications. Next slide. A key part of our performance management system in place focuses on our primary mandate of safety. What you see here is something that we're very proud of. This gives every manager and supervisor the ability to see just how they're doing in their operating locations. This is our bus's business barometer, and a big portion of it is dedicated to safety. We're now using information technologies to facilitate analysis, action planning, so that we can put the focus where it is most needed. As you see, the picture represent our buses as a business barometer, which is our tool, and it to communicate the key performance indicators across the organization. Thank you.
I'm going to pass it along to Fred, but it all ties together, everything that you've seen so far from everyone that's had a chance to talk. All of these actions that we do internally and externally are all really driving for the safety of our employees and our customers. And what you see here is how it ties in from a customer perspective, whether it's our public awareness campaigns, whether we're out there. We have a very robust maintenance program for stations that are inspected every day. So everything that we do is really trying to drive a level of safety within our organization. Fred, why don't you take us through third party?
Okay, thank you, Carmen. So you've heard pretty extensively what we as an organization think about safety, the priority we've established. So now, as I mentioned earlier, we put out hundreds of third-party contracts over the course of the capital program. So how do we convey or impart that on these various private sector entities who are going to do business for us? Well, we don't ask them, we basically require them to start to think and behave the way we do. And we do that through our contract specifications, where we actually ask them to start to think across the board the way transit looks at protecting not only their own employees, but transit employees, our customers, and the public in general on any construction site that New York City Transit funds them for. We also provide significant training and support. The training that our employees go through, we require the contractor's employees to go through as well, with respect to track safety and working along the right-of-way. We actually provide for their flagging protection on right-of-way construction sites. We also provide for access and protection of them when they're on facilities within transit property that are off the right-of-way. And we make it a point to share with them everything that we're doing internally as well, with respect to advisories, directives, reminders, shared information from incidents that we have on the property, so they can learn as well how best to protect their folks. There's also an oversight component to that. You're well aware of our all-agency evaluation, our ACE program, where we rate all our contractors every 6 months. Safety is one of the 5 major categories that performance is monitored and measured and reported on. And the contractors take that very seriously, because if they receive a poor or unsatisfactory rating, they know not only do we respond to that quickly and can shut them down on the site, but they're in danger of losing any future work with us if that behavior is not corrected. My staff, I maintain a staff of 10 employees that monitor the contractors. They conduct quarterly assessments that are shared with system safety and are available for other agencies to see as well. Our folks continue to partner with corporate system safety, recommendations from PTSB, manufacturers that we deal with on safety equipment. We're constantly working to enhance the environment by bringing new technology in, bringing in features and sharing that with all our contractors. Next slide, I put together some numbers so you can see what the trend has been over the last 5 years. You can see some mixed results. The two bars showing an increase in 2010 and 2011. As I said, we deal with hundreds of contractors. What our sense is when the economy started to go down in 2008 and 2009, and the capital program at New York City Transit continued at the multi-billion-dollar level, we saw the entrance of a lot of new players to public sector work, folks that were not as familiar with working on transportation projects and working along a live right-of-way. And therefore we saw some increase. And what I'm showing you there is the total employee accidents. The darker blue is the actual lost time accidents. And we've seen that improve significantly as a number of these firms have bid on it and received a second project where they've had the benefit of us working with them on their first experience to improve their overall performance. Next slide. But it's important for you to know that any award that we make, that safety is a consideration as we check on the responsibility of each of these contractors. We look at how they compare nationally against the national ratings, and we do consider that. It's brought up also in our qualification hearings, in discussion of how they're going to conduct themselves on our jobs. As I said, the assessments that we do throughout the life of a project, we maintain a record. We share that with our peers within the MTA family, and we continue to monitor and look to enhance each of those contractors' performance over the course of their experiencing with us. And where they do start to falter or fail, we immediately jump into that and work with them to improve that performance. If it doesn't, then it's reflected on the ACE evaluation. So we feel we have a very strong program for dealing with our third-party contractors. I'll turn it back to Carmen.
Let me just wrap up quickly that we have a very robust safety and cultural effort going on at New York City Transit. I can tell you that I'm not satisfied. We're not going to be satisfied. We continue to look for new ways to improve every day. We talk about this every single day, and it's not something that we'll ever relax on. So this is top of mind for us. And we don't forget that our mission is really to move New York and and our commodity that we move is very precious. So this is very near and dear to us and something that we'll just never let up on. So thank you.
Are there any comments, Mr. Capelli?
Very comprehensive presentation. The thing that continues to plague me, however, one of the things that continues to plague me, is the issue of overcrowding. Overcrowding on subways, platforms, and on buses, particularly buses that are moving at higher rates of speed than the crosstown buses may be going. Is there a specific program in place to look at increasing the service for that? And particularly the other piece of that is the East River closings that have taken place and how we push more people into lines they might not ordinarily be taken to ensure that we're not in any perilous safety situations.
I'm going to let Peter. I'll let Peter address part of your question. Let me say that this is an area that we watch, and one of the reasons, one of the benefits of going with a new communication-based signaling system is that we will have the ability to run additional trains on the line. In many cases, right now we're at the place where we really can't put more trains on due to the limitations in the signal system. So it's one of those things we watch very carefully where we can make the adjustments. We in fact do make the adjustments. Peter, I'm not sure if you want to take it a little further.
How are you reporting on that when that's the case?
Well, you see it here every month when we go through our, I mean, every when we talk about our adjustments in service, that's one of the things you're seeing where if we could put on, if we need buses, we will put it on. We'll adjust the service according to the loading guidelines.
All right. So first of all, on the subway side, and reiterating what Carmen just said, we do have guidelines that we apply both in subway and bus. Those guidelines on the subway are seated load plus 3 square feet per passenger, so it's not a packed-in, crush-loaded train. It's something less than that, and that's in the peak hours, depending on the frequency of service. Off-peak, our guidelines call for fewer standees, but we are very constrained on the subway, even in the off-peak where we have all the track work going on, and then many lines in the peak. So where we can, and we in fact, I think a few months ago talked about adding some service on the L train where we had the ability to add more service. We're continuing to look throughout the system and at times of day where we can add service. We have been monitoring with the closure of the R train tunnel where riders have shifted to, and in fact most of the alternate routes are seeing higher ridership, not surprisingly, and some additional crowding, but all of them are still within or basically at our guidelines. On the bus side, where we are not specifically constrained because of a signal system, but we are constrained by sometimes by vehicle availability and financially, we still have a program to stay within guidelines and a commitment to continue to adjust service. We bring that to the board 3 or 4 times a year, but in that case, what we've historically been doing is we count express buses every year, once a year, and local service on a 2-year weekday to 4-year weekend cycle. We are now working on looking at bus time data and as well as MetroCard data to try to refine that and look further. That doesn't mean that you won't have specific buses that on the express bus side, for example, our guidelines call for seated load with somewhat less, with some additional seats, but with traffic and other things, so you may have more on occasion.
Thank you. Mr. Merdler.
I don't know whether this is for Peter or for whom. The comment that Peter just made was we are constrained on the subway side by the condition of the signals, and constrained, and I'm truncating your comment, we're constrained by, among other considerations, finances. Have you ever put together what it would cost you, what it would cost the system to update completely the signal system in the New York City subway system so that we could have a system that is in the 21st century, not the 20th? And that we could have buses that are fully staffed and enough buses to get around and get things done? It seems to me that at some point in life, the public ought to know that it's going to take X number of dollars, it's with a range of specificity, to get this done, and until you have it?
We've reported out to the board, I believe through CPOC, the plan for communication-based signaling, and that plan goes on for a number of years. I believe it's over the next 30 years. It's not just a factor of money. It's a factor of money and being able to move New York at the same time. These projects take a considerable amount of time to implement. So it's not just right away. It's the actual cars that have to be modified also. So to answer your question, the Canarsie line's finished. We're currently working on the Flushing line. There is a plan to move from there to the Queens Boulevard line, and that plan goes on and on and on until the whole system is complete. And I believe it's 25 or 30 years from now before we'll get to the entire system. But it is all planned.
Comment. My recommendation to you for what it is worth is the following. Not every member of this board is a member of CPOC. And not every member of the press is awake at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon when you finally get around to having a CPOC meeting. It seems to me that both the full board and the public are entitled and should have the benefit of knowing you're doing what you can within the constraints that you have, and here are the constraints. It seems to me at some early date you would be helped, we would be helped, by having that information publicly disclosed.
No problem.
Mr. Albert.
Speaking of safety, one of the things I've noticed, which I didn't see addressed in any of the slides, is our performers who perform on the platforms of the subway system, after which a crowd gathers, and then the ability to walk and navigate that platform safely for those with great vision and those with limited vision seems to me to be a real problem. Where is enforcement to make sure the platforms are kept free and navigable?
Nothing of musical choices. Yes.
Well, I can't comment on that. And my understanding of the actual permit is it's a permitted, so you have to have a permit in order to.
Not on the platforms, it's the NYPD.
But it's the NYPD that's where I was going with that. It's the NYPD that has the enforcement responsibility.
And can we have a follow-up on this outside of the meeting? Okay. All right. Are there any other questions or comments? If there are none, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all in favor, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
There's no permits, there's no music,
Right.